Well, let's resume. Baroness Bashar will take up the questions.
Thank you.
Roger.
We're now slightly going to shift gear, and I want to look at DFID's own planning in late 2002 to 2003. Now, from September 2002, DFID started discrete planning. Am I right? Now, and you were determined to avoid the perception that DFID was planning for war. Is that right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
So how did you manage the tension of getting your department to plan as thoroughly as possible for the consequences of military action that you didn't want to happen? I mean, in a way you were avoiding that, but you having to plan. I mean, how did you manage to deal with that?
I appreciate the question, and of course, because we didn't talk it up, there's a lot of people who like to claim that we didn't prepare. But when it was Jacob Kellenberger that really clarified it for me, they were already preparing, but I thought, no, the right thing is to prepare for all eventualities. We could have a success. We could have Blix succeeding and sanctions being lifted and the whole international... So we should prepare for all eventualities, and that includes the possibility of military action. It includes the possibility of... So that's very clear and not difficult.
So when you
and then the only other question is not... Because everyone keeps saying, are you planning, as they're trying to make war inevitable. And I kept saying, we're planning for all eventualities. So the public perception, I mean, certainly the official opposition tried to make the argument that because I had doubts about the war, we weren't planning, but it's just not true. And by the way, I know you've got so many documents and so much publication. Because this myth is about, I would like to ask you to consider publishing just the record of the humanitarian work. It's all there. I've been in DFID reading through it. And for academics and so on, they'd be able to see exactly what did happen.
That's fine. But you said that if you were preparing for all your eventualities, what did you instruct your department to do? I mean, what were the eventualities, apart from the humanitarian crisis, what were the other scenarios that you were planning for, or you had instructed your department to plan for?
Well, we went... the possibility of success and the opening up of Iraq, which was the nicest thing to plan for, because then you'd get the World Bank and everyone would come in and da-di-da. Military action authorised by the UN. That's much easier because you'd get total international cooperation, you'd get troops from all sorts of countries, you'd get all the international players supporting. The worst case scenario is military action without UN authorisation because we're on our own then, and for the aftermath you've got difficulty of getting other players in. There was another paper, I don't think it was ours, that had the scenario of catastrophic success. What happened actually, very rapid military success and then breaking into ethnic conflict. So that was foreseen as a risk. And on that, I have to say, it's for the military. Under their Geneva Convention obligations, this is the American and our own military, they should be keeping order. You can't do any reconstruction, and it's very difficult to do humanitarian relief when you've got chaos and looting and violence. And it seems to me they didn't prepare for their Geneva Convention obligations to keep order and provide basic humanitarianism, and that was a military failure. I think it's a lesson learned thing. I see the military keep saying they didn't have this and that. Well, then they should have said to Blair, we're not ready, because there was no emergency. We could have taken longer.
So what you're really saying to me that in late 2002, you had instructed your department to plan for all different scenarios.
Absolutely.
And that is, that they were clear about that instruction.
Absolutely. And if you publish the files, which I would ask you to do, that will be clear to everybody.
I think you have frequently been challenged that you instructed your department not to engage enthusiastically in cross-vital planning for Iraq. And you have, of course, repeatedly denied this charge on public record. I think it'd be helpful to hear what your instructions were to your staff, and whether that you did instruct, or did you not instruct them not to engage enthusiastically cross-vital?
I mean, the situation is, as you've just questioned me, that we got down to planning against all eventualities within the difficult atmosphere we had in Whitehall about communications that we've already discussed. There was, though, a moment of shock when Suma Chakravarti, who you've met, who was then my permanent secretary, and Nicola Brewer, who was then with DFID, is now our ambassador to South Africa, said there was a very strong rumour that the Attorney General was saying there wasn't legal authority for war, and he was thinking of resigning, and the military were worried that they might be making soldiers subject to the risk of the International Criminal Court, which of course was a new instrument. And I thought, good heavens, am I putting my civil servants at risk by asking them to prepare for the consequences of military action? So that became a worry, and I think in the end, Andrew Turnbull asked the attorney for a view on this. So I think some of the doubt might be around the worries over that, which was only ever a rumour. We never saw anything in writing. And then I absolutely clarified, even if there was an illegal military action, a war of aggression, it's still right to prepare humanitarian relief. It's always right to prepare humanitarian relief. So that was clear, and we had to get on with that. And the truth is, on reconstruction, you go through, there'll be a military invasion, the Geneva Convention will apply and so on, the military will be in the lead, and we need another UN resolution. Presumably we're going to come on to this.
We'll come on to that.
No, I know, but therefore, in terms of my protection for my civil servants, it's clear now. I got the, I was thrown into a tiz by the thought I might be asking them to do illegal things. Then it's clear we should prepare for humanitarian, even if there's an illegal war. And any reconstruction requires some kind of UN authorization anyway. Therefore, we're okay on legalities for the civil service. Though there were lots of legal opinions from the Attorney General, if we didn't have a further UN Security Council resolution, what civil servants could and couldn't do. That was a big issue for quite some time.
I want to put something to you which Lieutenant General Sir Robert Fry said to us. He said, we had different representatives who came to the PJHQ who would hardly conceal their moral disdain for what we were about to embark upon. What's your response to that sort of view?
That we had a liaison person with the military who was a former military person herself, and I know that the department has gone back to her given that, and she has said there's no way she showed moral disdain. I mean, I can't. There was lots of emotion in the country at that time, but DFID is a very professional, high-quality organisation, and the liaison person was a former military person, so I think people read back into the script. The thing was such a mess. What is that thing? Victory has many parents and failure has none. So, and people knew about my doubts, so they start conflating it and say, yes, it's all DFID's fault, really. But so, it's not. That is not the record of what people do.
So you're saying that your department was clear about your personal views, and that did not have a negative impact on planning. Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that. They were clear, and I mean, people in the country shared. Our view, my view was, it included the possibility of war authorised by the UN. No question. We needed to get rid of sanctions. We needed, Iraq was suffering and we had to be willing to contemplate military action. So all my worries were about whether we did it right, not the possibility of doing it.